Little disclaimer. Today, I am not going to make myself very popular for a few people. This video, let's just say, it's a piece of art. This is not really my initial, I suppose, criticism, but I really need to talk about Star Wars Andor and what's going on Earth as of today. So hopefully you are still going to enjoy this video. And that's it.
I've been sleeping. I've been turning away from a truth I wanted not to face.
When we are being directly threatened by states with advanced military forces.
There's a darkness reaching like rust into everything around us. We let it grow, and now it's here.
The most effective way to deter them is to be ready. And frankly, to show them that we're ready.
It's easy for the dead to tell you to fight. And maybe it's true, maybe fighting's useless.
Навалами були не люди, залучені були всі необхідні сили. Станом на цей час відомо про 4 поранених, серед них дитина.
From the start, fight the Empire!
Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise.
Don't worry. We will deal with your rebel friends soon enough.
Alright, interpret the beginning of this video for your own. I don't really want to elaborate on that. I don't want to, because, just experience it. Anyway, let's talk about Star Wars Andor Season 2. Yes, this is officially the video where I review it. So, Andor, also known as Star Wars Andor and Andor, a Star Wars story, for its second season, is an American dystopian science fiction political spy thriller television series created by Tony Gilroy for the streaming service Disney+. It is part of the Star Wars franchise and the prequel to the film Rogue One, which is a prequel to, obviously, A New Hope, the original Star Wars from 1977. So that's really funny, because if you watch Andor, you can also directly watch Rogue One, and after Rogue One you can directly watch Star Wars. That's what I did. I watched Andor Season 2, I watched Rogue One, and then I watched the original Star Wars, and it was like a perfect, I guess, continuous story, which made sense, and that was really nice. So there we go. The series follows thief-turned-rebel spy Cassian Andor during the 5 formative years leading up to the events of the 2 films, exploring how he becomes radicalized against the Galactic Empire and how the wider Rebel Alliance is formed. Diego Luna reprises his role as Cassian Andor from Rogue One and serves as an executive producer. The series also stars Kyle Soller, Adria Arjona, yeah, I think so, Stellan Skarsgård, Fiona Shaw, Genevieve O'Reilly, Denise Coe, Faye Mercier, Verada Sethu, Elizabeth Dallow, Ben Mendelsohn, Benjamin Bratt, and Alan Tudyk. Lucasfilm announced a series focused on Andor in 2018, with Luna attached and Steven Schiff hired as showrunner. Schiff was replaced by Rogue One co-writer Gilroy as creator and showrunner in April 2020. Filming took place at Pinewood Studios in London and on location around the UK, with Neil Scanlon returning from Rogue One to provide practical effects. The first season, which tells a year of Andor's story when he first becomes revolutionary, was filmed from November 2020 to September 2021. During the COVID-19 pandemic. The second season covers the next 4 years leading up to Rogue One and was filmed from November 2020 to February 2024, which is actually, yeah, obviously that was like 2 years almost. Oh wow, crazy. With breaks and delays due to the 2023 Hollywood labor disputes. Alright, that makes sense. Nicholas Brittle composed the series' original score for the first season, while Brandon Roberts composed for the second season. Andor premiered on the 21st of September 2022. Episodes of the season were released weekly through November 2024, or obviously released on the 23rd of November. The second and final season premiered on April 2025, or the 22nd of April 2025, with the 3 episodes released weekly until May the 13th. The series has received widespread critical acclaim for its writing, performances, characterizations, cinematography, production values, themes and its darker, more mature and grounded tone compared to the other Star Wars properties. The first season was nominated for 3 Primetime Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Drama Series. Andor represents a detailed view of how the Galactic Empire's government operates and the everyday consequences of its action upon its citizens. Beginning 5 years before the events of Rogue One and A New Hope, the series employs an ensemble cast of characters to demonstrate how a rebel alliance forms in opposition to the Galactic Empire. Central to the cast is the eponymous Cassian Andor, a thief who becomes a revolutionary and eventually joins the rebellion. So there we go. Obviously, Cassian Andor, a thief and a scavenger whose home planet Kenari was rendered uninhabitable by the Galactic Empire. The series begins with Andor as a revolution-averse cynic and explores how he becomes the most passionate person who is going to give themselves to save the galaxy in Rogue One. Gilroy has described him as a natural leader who manipulates people, adding to that he is really a perfect kind of spy, warrior and killer. Antonio Vigna portrays a young Cassian Andor when he was known as Casa. We also have Kyle Soller as Cyril Karn, a deputy inspector for Priox Morlana Primor Authority, a corporate conglomerate in charge of a trade sector. Cyril works for Primor's secret services and is determined to capture Cassian Andor after learning he killed 2 Primor security employees. We also have Adria Arjona as Bix Kalin, a mechanic and black market dealer who is Cassian's ally and close friend, obviously lover too, and has been romantically involved with him on and off. She cares for Marva in Cassian's absence. We also have Stellan Skarsgård as Luthen Rial, a key player in the nascent rebellion known only as Axis by Imperial agents. He is Bix's contact for selling stolen equipment and hires Cassian on his first mission as a rebel operative. Luthen poses publicly as an antiques dealer from Coruscant. In the second season, Cassian's relationship with Luthen has grown strained. We also have Fiona Shaw as Marva Andor, Cassian's adoptive mother who took care of him from Canary with her husband Clem. Obviously she was seen in season 1 only, which is quite unfortunate. Obviously season 2 she wasn't in it, I suppose, but obviously her legacy still carries on with Cassian. Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma, an Imperial senator representing the wealthy core world of Chandrila, who tries to navigate the politics of the Empire while secretly helping fund the fledgling rebellion from her family fortune. O'Reilly reprises the role from prior Star Wars media. Interesting. We also have Denise Goh as Dedra Miro, an ambitious and strategic supervisor for the Imperial Security Bureau, ISB, who is deeply absorbed with hunting and eliminating a rebel leader codenamed Axis, aka Stellan Skarsgård's character. She's later seen in a relationship with Cyril, which turns out, I suppose, not really great, but oh well. Alright, first of all, these were the character descriptions and the synopsis of the second season. I can also totally understand why people love and hate this series. I mean, Star Wars Andor is not for everyone, but if you like it, welcome to my team, man. I think Andor is such a grounded story, and that is what makes Star Wars, and any other piece of fiction work, I think Andor, as its essence, in its essence, is a story about rebellion, hope, and the fight against evil, But we have all these characters and they're all working towards one goal, and that's obviously to rebel against evil empire, which is really interesting. I think, I haven't spoken to a lot of people that dislike the show, but I also heard some other opinions that obviously like Star Wars is not what it used to be, and I think a lot of people can agree with me here, because I think that Star Wars is, it's a big universe. You have so many stories to tell. Like, you have stories that we haven't even seen, I think Star Wars is such an expandable universe and such a big and vast, universe and galaxy that quite literally anything is possible. If it goes, if it's about like a Jedi with a lightsaber, or is it the rebellion against the Empire, or maybe is it about like Rey Skywalker, or suppose Rey. Don't really like to call her Skywalker, but that's a story for another time. Anyway, I think Star Wars is just a big, vast universe, and every single story counts in a way. And I think every single story, just like our humanity here, every single story, every single person counts. I think, everyone has something interesting to tell, and that's obviously very, very intriguing about most people, right? But all right, let's talk about why I like Andor so much. Andor, and I suppose some people agree with me here and some people don't agree with me here, is the best Star Wars has ever been. And here's why it matters. A Star Wars story worth telling. It's not often that a Star Wars story sneaks up on you. For decades, the franchise has traded on its mythology and also on lightsabers, chosen ones, and ancient destinies repeating themselves in ever loftier CGI. But Andor doesn't care about any of that. It has no interest in Jedi, no time for Skywalker sentimentality, and no reverence for nostalgia. What it offers instead is something both rare and, in the context of modern television, vital. A political drama set in space that doesn't flinch from the realities of rebellion, occupation, yeah, hopefully I pronounced that right. Like I said, English is not my first language, but that's okay. And authoritarianism. And that's the most difficult word, and I can pronounce that rightly. Anyway, it is quite simply the most grown-up thing Star Wars has ever produced, and its refusal to hold on your hand is what makes it so electrifying. If the Mandalorian is comfort food, Andor is an unfiltered shot of espresso served in the middle of the night during a blackout. Holy shit, this is such a great quote. If the Mandalorian is comfort food, something you eat, regularly and you like it, Andor is an unfiltered shot of espresso served in the middle of the night during a blackout. This is perfect. That's a perfect description. It's Star Wars without the fairy tale. A series that asks you to consider not just the cost of fighting tyranny, but the physical toll of living under it. And unlike the more sanitized entries in the franchise, Andor does not pretend that hope is enough. It shows hope is built brick by organizing brick in the shadows of despair, and in doing so, it reclaims the concept of rebellion from the realm of cinematic fantasy and grounds it in something uncomfortably real. This is also precisely right, because brick by brick, rebels are built on hope, I think every single person you see in Andor actually delivers to give it to a bigger, group of people. I think Andor is part of the rebellion, but the rebels are pretty much from all over the galaxy. And it's very interesting. Cassian Andor, rebel smuggler. Obviously, one of the most arresting aspects of Andor is its central character. Cassian Andor, played with understated intensity by Diego Luna, isn't introduced as a hero. He's a liar, a thief, and within minutes of screen time, a killer. His arc doesn't follow a redemptive trajectory in the conventional sense. Instead, it shows how messy and morally compromised the path to revolution can be. This isn't the story of a righteous farm boy destined to bring balance to the force, just like Luke. This is the story of a reluctant insurance, someone who has learned to navigate power structures and survive them, and only later decides to dismantle them. Tony Gilroy, the showrunner, has openly stated that he looked at real-world revolutionaries when constructing Cassian's backstory, citing, among others, young Joseph Stalin. It's, whatever. Before he became the iron-fisted leader of the Soviet Union, Stalin was a bank robber and underground agitator, a man who moved through shadows and broke laws in pursuit of a future he could barely articulate. This comparison doesn't suggest that Cassian will become a tyrant, no, but it does root him in a more historically accurate mold of revolutionary. Real-world freedom fighters are rarely pure. They are forged by brutality, not ideology, and Andor understands this better than any Star Wars story to date. Mon Mothma and the Death of Truth. Midway through the series, a moment lands so hard that it practically reverberates reverberates beyond the screen. Mon Mothma, senator, diplomat, and one of the architects of the rebellion, delivers a speech in which she condemns the Gorman massacre, but it's not the event itself that defines the moment, it's the way she names it: unprovoked genocide. She says, daring to speak the truth in chamber that rewards silence and complicity. She then warns of all the things at risk. The loss of an objective reality is perhaps the most dangerous. The death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil. Boom!
Chambers, hold on the truth, was finally lost on the Gorman Plaza. What took place yesterday, what happened yesterday on Gorman, was unprovoked genocide.
That's how you say it, man. So, let's just rephrase that. Of all things at risk, the loss of an objective reality is perhaps the most dangerous. I think that is very brilliant. That's very wow. That's insane. The death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil. Wow. This is wow. This is insane, because this reminds me of George Orwell's 1984, which I'm currently reading. And the death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil. It's like, you know, people want you to be silent, you know, but sometimes those things don't work. It's a line that could be pulled directly from his history textbook or from a 2024 news broadcast. And the era of disinformation, alternative facts, and algorithmic manipulation underlines a gut punch of relevance. Yeah, this isn't space opera. This is cultural critic dressed in robes and data pads. Mon Mothma's speech is a mirror held up to a world where politicians lie without consequences, and outrage drowns out honesty. The series doesn't just explore the mechanics of fascism, it goes further, diagnosing the rot that sets in when truth is treated as optional. Star Wars grows up. Why Andor is a new kind of science fiction. Part of what makes Andor so startling is how little it resembles the rest of Star Wars. The tone is colder, the pace more deliberate, and the focus less on spectacle and more on systems. It is concerned with bureaucracy, bit of a Kafkaesque move, man. Anyway, with surveillance, with quiet acts of resistance that don't come with fanfare or theme music. There are no plucky droids cracking jokes, no mystical prophecies. I suppose you have one droid, which is K2SO, which, you know, sometimes makes me giggle, but whatever. Instead, you get scenes of tense Senate debates, intelligence briefings at the ISB, and philosophical ruminations in prison blocks. It's like The Wire meets 1984, and somehow it works beautifully. The absence of Jedi or Force mythology is not a weakness, it's a liberation. Andor refuses to fall back on fantasy to make its point. It demands your attention, not through battles, but through conversation, consequences, and complexity. The writing is sharp, the cinematography is stark, and the character development is patient. The show doesn't just ask you to understand rebellion, it asks you to feel its cost. That's not just good television, that's kind of art. So that's beautiful. That's wow. That's a really intriguing way to put it. At a time when pop culture is saturated with remakes, fan service, and increasingly hollow spectacle, Andor stands alone. It treats its audience with respect. It trusts you to follow a slower pace, to pay attention to details, and to care about something more than just nostalgia. It tells a story about rebellion that feels real, urgent, and yes, very dangerous. And it does all of this within the confines of one of the most commercial, safe IPs on the planet. That is a small miracle. The fact that Andor exists at all is a sign that there is still room for intelligence and nuance in mainstream storytelling. It's a reminder that science fiction isn't just for escapism, it can be a vehicle for truth. And in a world where truth is under attack, that makes Andor not just relevant, but necessary. If you care about stories that matter, if you care about the future of storytelling, then Andor isn't just a show you should watch, it's a story you need to hear and understand. Boom. This is why Andor worked. Andor is a television show, but, you know, set in the Star Wars universe, and I love Star Wars. I love all things Star Wars. Even, you know, I have a slight hate towards the sequels, but still love them in a way, you know. I care about Star Wars. I care about the freedom of certain projects of Star Wars, right? And Andor, I wasn't really excited about it at first. Obviously, a lot of people were like, dude, this is going to be a series about a guy that we just seen for like one film and he dies, you know. I think a lot of people were taken in awe by this series, especially like the second series or the second season. You know, by the time we had the second season, we had so many other live action Star Wars projects like Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett, Kenobi. We had The Mandalorian season 1, 2, and 3. We had so many things, you know, and all of these Star Wars projects, Skeleton Crew too, but Andor season 2, I think people will still hold on to it, even if it's going to, you know, be a lot years older, you know. Hopefully you understand what I mean, because I think Andor is one of those shows you need to experience, need to watch, and if you don't understand it, just rewatch it. Try to watch videos on it, because it's literally history, but then Star Wars, and that's wow, that's wonderful. Because I think when I watch the original trilogy, which is my favorite trilogy, I see things reflect from our real life in it, and I see, yeah, okay, this makes sense, right? Also with the prequels, obviously the political side to Star Wars makes sense, right? Our world is also filled with politics. I'm not brave enough to delve more into politics. I don't care, actually. I just, you know, I'm not brave enough for politics. That's also what Obi-Wan Kenobi says, right? But Star Wars Andor is this show that, although it's about rebellion, about fighting the good fight, it's also about characters and stories and backgrounds, you know. It's background filling, I suppose. It's more like the backstory, you know, of Cassian Andor, which obviously, if you've seen Rogue One, now you fully understand his story. But it's not necessarily like a show that everyone was excited about. But I think if you watch it, you know, it's still so interesting. Like I said, it's like this background series, right? It's not really a series that you would think, okay, well, maybe I should play that, you know, I don't know, like, maybe I could just watch Ahsoka because it's about lightsabers and Force stuff, instead of this guy that walks and talks about rebellion and stuff like that. I think if I were to choose between Andor or Ahsoka, which is going to be a very hard decision, I'm still going to choose Andor, because although Ahsoka is my favorite character of Star Wars, Andor has this grounded story, and I think that works. And I think a lot of other studios, especially like Disney, should listen to that, because they've been pumping out content for Marvel and Star Wars, and sometimes those things don't match. And with Andor, you have this opportunity to, you know, put your foot in the doorway and say, guys, listen to this, watch this works, you know, this is what we need, this is what the viewers need. And I think I'm just a mere fan of Star Wars, right? I just want to express my opinion here on this platform. But I think if Star Wars and Disney made more series like Andor, they would actually be in a total win, right? Will these series all be grounded, all be dark? Probably not, but essentially, you know, just think about great stories, think about real good character depth. You know, Andor was told in 2 seasons. That's not a lot, but there were 24 episodes. I think the first season was 12 episodes. The second was also 12 episodes, right? Yeah, 24 episodes in total, which is not a lot, but you can literally tell us a great story. Ahsoka season 2 will also be a great story, obviously, but like Andor is this bigger than life story, right? It's about rebellion, and in a world where we live as people in this era, I'm not quite sure. We just need to look out for each other, and I think that's very important. Yeah, there we go. This was a rather longer video, but I think my essential goal was accomplished. You know, I talked about Andor season 2, and I talked about, you know, the world going on. You know, the world is always rotating, always there's always something happening here, and it's always very interesting to experience this Andor season 2 show. I think I will always remember this show. I'm not quite sure when I'll rewatch it, but I'll eventually do it, hopefully. I think so. Maybe in the future we'll need to wait and see for that, obviously. But I think hopefully you guys enjoyed it. hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully, let me know down in the comment section below what you thought of, obviously, Andor. And if you liked the series, if you didn't like the series, just let me know. If you thought this video was crap, you can also let me know that, obviously. But ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will check you later. Goodbye, everyone.